Thanks very much, Alex Marquardt there now. We are 1 week into the post-impeachment chapter of Donald Trump's presidency. And the best word to describe it, well, that word is purge. Just 2 days after the Senate acquitted him, the president's retaliations began. Now, on Friday, Trump fired Gordon Sondland, his ambassador to the European Union, and then removed Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman from the National Security Council. And their crimes, you ask? Well, they complied with legal subpoenas related to the House's impeachment investigation. And then adding insult to injury, Vindman's twin brother here in this red tie was also removed from the NSC, even though he was not connected to the impeachment investigations. Things didn't stop there. This week, all 4 federal prosecutors quit the case against Mr. Trump's longtime friend as well as advisor Roger Stone. And that exodus coming just hours after the Justice Department overruled the request to send Stone to prison for up to 9 years. President Trump had publicly slammed the 9-year recommendation just hours earlier. And to remind you, this is very important here, a jury found Stone guilty in November of 7 counts, including lying to and obstructing of Congress. The president took to Twitter to attack the recommended sentence. You can see this is a horrible and very unfair situation. The real crimes were on the other side. As nothing happens to them, cannot allow this miscarriage of justice. Now, the department says the decision was made before the president's tweet. Mr. Trump also denies interference. All of this really is not painting a picture of a president who has learned from his impeachment, bringing to mind this political cartoon, which I, in fact, Instagrammed back in 2017, and that is the life cycle of Trump employees. Seems really nothing much has changed at all, has it, Cyril?
Isa, that is precisely the question we're going to delve into with our legal analyst, Shanlon Wu, who joins us now. Shan, Trump tweets that there is a miscarriage of justice on Monday evening, beg your pardon, Tuesday morning local time, when he doesn't like the sentencing recommendation against his friend and former ally Roger Stone. And then that gets changed just hours later by the Department of Justice. Did the president cross a line?
He certainly did cross the line, although we don't have evidence of him directly picking up the phone and calling the U.S. Attorney General. The timing here makes that the only explanation, meaning that the only explanation for this reversal by the Justice Department would have to be the president weighing in on this. It's really an extremely unusual situation. In my time at the Justice Department, I never once saw this happen, where the trial prosecutors, the operational people who know the case best, had already set forth their position in a written pleading to the judge, only to have the higher-ups reverse that. And it just very,
well,
very
Shan, what could
strange.
explain that? Why would their higher-ups reverse that? Because presumably the way these things work, the higher-ups normally, first they green-light it, right? They have a look, they consider it, they green-light it.
Exactly. There's no way, particularly in the case of this magnitude with this kind of scrutiny, that these 4 prosecutors would have just gone rogue and decided this recommendation themselves. They would have vetted it. There would have been discussions with their supervisors and even the higher-ups at Main Justice. So the only explanation we have for this is simply that there was some sort of political pressure exerted upon the higher-ups, or that the higher-ups wanted to please President Trump, having seen his public displeasure with what had happened. And you
what
can
about
see
the DOJ explanation, Shan? I want to thoroughly examine their argument. The DOJ explanation that this was in the works. They had decided to reverse the sentencing requirement before the president tweeted.
Right. The difficulty with that is, as you pointed out, they would have gone through that, and they had plenty of time to go through those discussions before the prosecutors put forth their position of 7 to 9 years, which I did think was high. I don't think that the judge would have sentenced him to the 7 to 9 years, but it was statutorily correct. It was correct within the U.S. sentencing guidelines, just at the high end of it. So the higher-ups explanation for this simply doesn't withstand scrutiny, because in the memo that they submitted, which was very watered down, and frankly, it read more like a defense counsel memorandum than a prosecutor one, they didn't give any real reasons for it. They simply essentially said, well, we think this is too much, it's unfair. There was no real legal analysis to it. All the legal analysis was in the first memorandum.
Is it illegal for the president to have tweeted what he tweeted and then for the DOJ to change their sentencing requirements?
Yeah, very, very good question. The system in the U.S. is such that there is no rule that says the president, who is head of the executive branch and the Justice Department is within that branch, there's no rule that says he can't weigh in, that he couldn't talk to the Attorney General and say, I think this about the case. In practice, however, over decades, the department and the president have been very careful to avoid that because it undermines the confidence the public has in the integrity of the criminal justice system. And the way it's set up at Main Justice is you have the career prosecutors and you often have the higher-ups who are political appointees. And there's a great deal of deference paid to the career prosecutors to basically insulate their decisions and insulate the Justice Department from this idea of political interference.
All right. Well, once again, we're seeing this is a president who does not feel constrained and bound by norms and conventions, however long they've been in place. Shanlon Wu, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you.
He's making his own rules as he goes along, but like Shan said, there's nothing suggested is illegal.
It's not illegal.
Regard.
He can't go to jail for it. So if it suits him, he does it.